it's normal for human beings, for people in any walk of life to feel uncertain when they're heading into new worlds or new places, and that can be scary and debilitating, etc., etc. So
I like to use the analogy of how us as practitioners come in and we'll draw the teddy bear, the outline of the teddy bear, like I like to say, when we're talking about the rules of reinvention. And then we give the coloring crayons or the copies, whatever, to our clients, and we say, you fill in everything because you actually do know how to do this. We're just holding the container for you. So if you're expecting a leader to be able to lead through change, both as facilitator but also as a member of the team, I think the most important thing is to understand that that person is also human.
But it's not about the compliance itself. It's about how do you enable compliance through being adaptable and agile and innovative. And that's the part that we focused on, because our digital transformation journey was about making sure that we can deliver on compliance. Not to say that we are compliant.
Welcome to the Inside Reinvention Podcast, where we tackle the reality of staying relevant by exploring how to predict, how to prepare, and how to pioneer. My name is Adeliah Jacobs, and I'm your host. With me today are two special guests. You are special. And I'll tell the viewers why you're special. You helped with the intro. I told you that we're going to keep it real because this is what we do throughout the podcast. It's the intent. And we're going to live into it. So I'm going to not spend a lot of time introducing the guests. They're going to do that themselves. All I want to say is I'm very, very happy to have both Roshon Omar here and Phil. And if we didn't say this, what you're going to walk away with today is just how beautifully universal our tools are. You're going to hear from Phil, who plays a lot in the space of commercials or corporates, and you're going to hear a lot from Roshon, who plays in the Agri business space, and sort of common ground is IT. And IT is two little letters for a really big industry. Take it away, Phil.
Thank you, Adeliah. Yeah, my name's Phil Isle, and I'm a certified reinvention practitioner, and I'm a consultant, and I work with lots of different organisations and have done for many years, and helping them with their people and change challenges and opportunities. I look forward to helping anyone really understand how they can use some of these tools more effectively.
Thanks, Phil. So I'm actually really glad to be here with both Phil and Adeliah. I'm Roshon Omar. I've been in the Human Resources Change Management Organizational Development work for a good number of years, like Phil. Also CRP, Certified Reinvention Practitioner, for those who don't know what that stands for. And currently in agribusiness, but I just want to say that currently, my history spans way more than that. And I think when you speak about IT, Adeliah, two little words, but in the world that we're living and working in, it's about digital transformation for me.
100%.
And there's quite a lot happening in that space.
Mm-hmm. So this is, we have a lot of talk about digital transformation. Some people do or apply because it's the cool thing to do or it's the now thing to do. Others do that because it's absolutely necessary for their businesses to stay around, which is why we spoke about staying relevant. Before we go into the full-on discussion, I also want to say to those who are listening for the first time today, if it is your first time, please go and find the subscribe button. Where is it? The bottom left, bottom right. You'll find it. Go and click it. And while you are listening to our guest this morning or today, also would like you just to place any questions that you might have, any comments. We love them. It allows us to bring the topic close to home, because that's the point. We wanted not just to bring it close to home for each of our guests, but also close to home for you. So I want to start with this topic called fear. I know that, or we all know that change it's petrifying. It's terrifying. And it's terrifying when you are working with yourself as an individual and you're looking to make a leap or take a leap. It's also terrifying for a group of, a team, any organization of any size in any industry. If leadership comes around and says, hey, this is where we're going today, it's never exciting for people. They can see where it is that you want to go, and they would like to be excited along with you. But it doesn't help when we tell people this is where we're going. We need you to be excited about this. Let's be happy. It just never works that way. So, well, I want you to tell me a little bit, or tell us a little bit about how you deal with that in your work.
In my work, crikey, yeah, it's a great question. And I'll start off by saying it's always challenging and difficult, because it's normal for human beings, for people in any walk of life, to feel uncertain when they're heading into new worlds or new places, and that can be scary and debilitating, etc., etc. So I guess the first thing we do is we help people understand that it's normal, and then help them with some conversations, work out what's triggering it maybe. And then once you kind of understand that and sometimes put a name on it, it helps people. We also help them to understand that and share with each other some of the things that's going on between them and how they're all feeling. And the concept of it's not just me helps people. So it is good old conversations, I think, that starts that process because if you're flooded with fear, then you can't listen well, you can't think well, and you can't act well. So we try to get them more open to some of those things. That's our first step, and then we take it from there. And then the next steps could be anything, really, or it could be not anything. It could be a number of things.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing about getting them to start to be more open to things. And some people can't or won't, but usually the vast majority can and will.
So I like how we always talk about how human it is, how natural and normal it is. And if we say that it's human, it means everybody experiences. Doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter what work you're doing, doesn't matter what country you come from, whatever the case is. What makes it universal? Why do we say that?
I think I'll go back to what Phil said about the fear thing. So that's a human emotion. And when we look at that kind of emotion, it can be debilitating. But for some, it can also be sort of like a something to spur you on.
Yeah.
And it's about how you actually utilize it in a positive way. So it's never unhealthy to say you should have a little bit of fear. It just gives you a little boost, a little excitement. But not to be petrified where you can't actually move. So that's the thing. It's a human emotion. In my workspace, I'll take you back to quite some time ago. Let's just say around about COVID, when it started. I was working with a new team, my team actually. And the fear was that they were moving into new things that they needed to do. And they had in their heads no experience of how to navigate this changing world. I mean, just think back when we were in COVID and things changed rapidly at that time. We went from not even having something like Zoom to currently just using Zoom and Teams as second nature. So we had to transition that period. And in that period, they were sort of, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. I'm not used to working in this space, so what do I do to get there? And I think for me, what happened in that space was, it just happened that reinvention came about at that particular space, that particular point in time. And I think it was the trigger to helping us move forward. So, I mean, it's very specific too, but we'll talk about that.
Sorry, can I jump in there? But and I love that example because everybody experienced that.
Yeah.
And it was something that was thrown upon us. But there's another example that I have, even when you choose it, sometimes it's scary as well.
Yeah.
So often, and there's both kinds of change. We don't choose and we do choose. When I moved from the UK to South Africa 15 years ago, and I really wanted to do it, so did my wife. And then maybe we were naive or stupid or brave, I don't know which. But when we arrived here, that's when the fear hit. Because we had no lifeboat, we had no going back, we were all in. And that was also, with the fear came, have we made the right change? Is it going to be okay, etc., etc. So it can happen whether you choose or not choose it as well. And I'm sure we've all experienced that.
Yeah, but the one thing that you mentioned there, which happened in my team as well, was the all in. There was this thing about, I can't go back, we can't go back, So what's going to take you forward? Because what was no longer is. What
true.
takes you forward? And that was the thing that sort of like sits there with people,
Yeah. You can't reverse time, sadly, no.
So I want to explore just a little bit more. I know none of us sitting here today are neuroscientists, but we all have a brain. Hopefully.
Last time we checked.
Last time we checked, yes. And it all works the same way. And I wanted our viewers just to learn a little bit more about just, if we could just touch on the surface of our biological response. What happens in the body? And why is it that how is it that we can learn to do exactly what you're asking us to do, what you say is possible? I know it's possible, with or without having led teams through reinvention. Just on a very personal level, we can all tell those stories because I like how Nadia explains. We'll introduce Nadia in a little bit. I love how she uses the analogy of if you're on the left side of the S-curve, you start as a little baby. You're growing exponentially. You're reinventing before any of us was to be here today and share this word with you. You're doing it anyway. But what makes it easier at some points and what makes it difficult along that journey? What's going on in the inside?
Well, if you look at a baby doesn't know the concept of fear.
Yeah.
They're just going to try and do things, experiment, because their brains are still very plastic, if we can call that, that neuroplasticity. So it's wired to explore and do things and experiment, and it's okay, if I'm going to fall, I'll get up and I'll try again. If we didn't, none of us would be walking today. That's what we do. So we try things. But as adults, we start to forget that we can do that.
Yes.
So, it's about how do we go back to that state.
The childhood state.
Yeah.
So babies never say, I'm not going to walk today because I fell yesterday.
Yeah.
They just carry on. So it's all about finding out a little bit how we help people to navigate that. I like what you said. How do we take people back? Because we know we are taught how to be everything that we not needing to be or shouldn't be anymore. We're now we've been taught all our lives how not to be curious, how not to explore with concepts, how not to be playful. Which is really, really damaging, I would say, for organizations today, because we have all come through a school of whatever kind. You come into the workplace, which is a whole new school on its own. You've got to learn the rules and you've got to walk the path, and you must not stray from those lines. I like to use the analogy of how us as practitioners come in and we'll draw the teddy bear, the outline of the teddy bear, like I like to say, when we're talking about the rules of reinvention. And then we give the coloring crayons or the copies, whatever, to our clients, and we say, you fill in everything because you actually do know how to do this. We're just holding the container for you, as you say. So we'll place the rules. Our rules are very thin, if you like. Thin, not because they're not rich, thin because we want you to break those lines. We want you to color outside the lines every now and again, because you're not going to learn anything about your organization, your team, yourself in the process if you're only going to be following the rules of the person standing in front of you. And so, Phil, you mentioned auditory exclusion earlier on. You mentioned not being able to see. What does that look like in the context of working with a system, or sound like?
Well, one of the things that struck me when you were just speaking there in a moment is about when we help organizations and leaders and systems to progress, we often focus a lot on the language and the communication that's used, because it is an awful lot is within that. Leaders, that's pretty much all they have. You know, the language, the communication they use, how they connect with people, and so on. And often in times of high levels of change, when the rabbit in the headlights occur and the fear comes up strong, people get very intense and very serious about things, which is not what you talked about there. You talked about playful and curious, and so we try, in the way we deal with organisations, leaders, to keep it light, and we try and pass that on to the leaders and the people in the business, and not so they get serious and withdrawn, and pull up the drawbricks, I'll look after me, but it's more about keeping it light and looking after each other, and that's how we try and help organisations and the system deal with it. One aspect, but also we try and get them to think about the looking along a timeline. So how is today and how could tomorrow be? So there's a little bit of visioning and of curiosity and thinking about the future as well as the now, the here and now, which sometimes can feel pretty horrific as well.
You took us straight into the Toto matrix, and that's why I'm smiling, because I'm like, that's precisely where we're going today.
You're welcome.
But before we go to Toto, I want to just say it with the point a little bit more, the one where we spoke of a little bit of auditory exclusion. But I'm going to frame it as a question rather. Have you tried to throw a lot of data, really meaningful data, research-based data, at leaders when they were needing to gear up for a reasonably big, well, let me not give it a size. Let me just say any kind of reinvention, because reinvention doesn't always have to be the big, spectacular kind. But think of a time when you did throw a lot of data at leaders, and the data is accurate, and it's science-based. They know it too, but there was resistance. Why is that? What do you think is going on for them? I'd like our viewers to know why throwing data at smart people you would think might be the answer, but it isn't always the answer.
Well, yeah, it's down to the kind of this concept of back to fear and people being flooded with emotion and they don't listen very well. It's an amygdala hijack.
Yes,
I think I said that right. But they can't hear it. It doesn't get in. Number one, because all the blood's rushed from their brain, and really for the brain to operate well, it needs some blood, and therefore they're not listening, and their brain isn't braining very well. It's not computing. So, with the best will in the world, even the brightest and most capable individuals, professionals, leaders, just aren't ready at that point. And that's why I say keep it light, not too intense, not too heavy, and get everybody to help each other through it, because there might be a few things that have drifted in, and collectively, then they can perhaps move forward. But too much data too soon.
I also like to say that, sometimes we forget, or maybe teams who report into leaders forget that our leaders are very human. They're not different. So if you're expecting a leader to be able to lead through change, both as facilitator but also as a member of the team, I think the most important thing is to understand that person is also human. So if you're going to be experiencing all kinds of sweaty palms or reasons why you can't actually take these steps, it's no different for the leader. Yes, and it does bring me back to episode 1 now, where we spent a lot of time speaking about mindset. And this is precisely, it's exactly that. It's just helping people to learn, give them hacks, help them to to jump, to see it, because it's normal, and then to jump either over it, through it, or around it. But leaps are very tangible things, because they start here. Okay. I also just wanted to touch on the Toto matrix. Let's touch on it for now. Or Toto meaning today and tomorrow. There's a tension there that sits, and you mentioned it earlier on, there's a tension that sits there for individuals. It sits there for small organizations. It sits for major corporations. Take us through a little bit of all the talk or everything we try to share with our clients about value extraction on the left side, or shall we say on the one axis, and value creation on the other.
Yes, and I guess we like using this in my business quite a lot, this Toto matrix, because when times are competitive, when things are moving quickly, when there's a lot of change around, everybody gets into this very, very focused, it's urgency, we must do it now. It's all very of the moment. And that's important. However, some of that doesn't prepare you for tomorrow. And this is where the Toto matrix comes into its own. It's an and, it's an both and. You have to do both. You have to do and. You can't just focus on one. And this kind of day-to-day chaos that sometimes exhibits itself in organizations is going to continue if you don't try to create different ways which help you form a pathway into the future, which is a kind of future back thinking. This is where we want to be. This is how we want to create the future for us, which we think is going to be more valuable than it is today, or more sustainable than today, rather than just focusing on extracting value. That's the phrase you use, extracting value from today. It's all about, jam today. And sometimes you need that, obviously, for day to day, to pay wages, to pay salaries, to pay your suppliers, etc., etc. You need that. However, if you ignore the future, and whatever timeline you want to put in, whether that, depending on your organization's area, discipline, sometimes that might be 20 years or 30 years in the future. Sometimes it might be only next year or a couple of years in advance. Depends on how quickly your part of the world is shifting. So IT shifting very quickly. You mentioned IT. That's, you have to think 6 months ahead because it's going to be very different. Something like mining, moves a bit slower. So you've got a longer timeline. But we try and get organizations to think about both. So it's quite polarized. But one or the other ain't great.
One or the other is not great. I want to ask our viewers to please hit that subscribe button, because it's going to get really, really interesting from this point out. We're going to dive into the tools a little bit more, and we're going to talk about polarization. What does that look like and what does it sound like? So that those who are listening, they get to identify, this is where I'm at. And if you do find that that's where you're at, it's totally okay. Welcome back. If you were with us before the break, you would have heard a lot of what goes on for us here, when we are faced with the need to change. Sometimes that need to change is based on what we know is no longer working, but we don't know how to fix it. Sometimes that change is because our customers are saying, that's not what we want anymore. Sometimes it comes because we spoke and we touched on Toto Matrix earlier on, that we understand even as individuals, when we spoke about value extraction, we spoke about how easy it is to, even as us, as individuals who are facilitators of change, even for us, at some point, you might have, or you might reach that point again when you go, oh my gosh, I have to pay bills, I have to do this, I have to do that. How am I going to ready myself for my next leap? How do I stay relevant as a facilitator? In a world where consulting, for example, is quite a saturated market. You can't go in there just with your regular set of tools, or you can, but how long are those tools going to serve you? How long will it serve your clients? So that's what we spoke about before the break. We spoke a lot about value extraction. And I want to play a bit more with the tension that we try to help our clients identify. So how do you self-identify that you actually have attention in your organization? And then how do we help you bring the pieces together so that you are ready for the change or the program that a facilitator like either Roshon, Omar, or Phil Isle is going to take you through. We're going to ask you again to subscribe. Please do, because it helps us to understand a little bit more about whether you like what we bring for you and what else we need to bring for you. So, Roshon, you're in agribusiness. I smile because I know only just a little bit as you introduced me to a couple of years ago, and that was just before COVID. I'll tell the viewers just a little bit, not what I was doing, more what I was observing in agribusiness. There I was. I remember Roshon called and asked if this is something that I would want to do for a little. It was a very short contract, almost irrelevant to mention. But what was interesting was where I found myself, because there I was in the, what shall we call it? I think I was in cybersecurity for a little bit, but I was sitting quite literally, proximity-wise, in the middle of the digitization or the digital enablement of what was once a manual process.
Yeah.
So there I came to work every day, or came to the office every day, just really excited and really intrigued almost by what people were doing, the conversations they were having, how you go from having a manual process to having one that's now, you use your phone for it, or you use your tablet for it, you use your laptop for it. It's not a simple coder that you can say, hey, here's the brief, put this together, make it digital. Because if you did that, you might often find that your product is not serving the very purpose it's meant to make easier, or the very people who are going to be using that. So I want you to take us, starting with my agribusiness, tell us a little bit about what that tension might look and feel like.
Okay. Yeah. So it's pretty much what you said. So at that point in time, we were going through starting our digital transformation journey. And it was before we even got to getting the business ready, our team needed to be ready. And we saw this coming before, probably about 2 years before the time. We knew that we were going to hit this digital transformation journey. And we knew that we needed to help the rest of our people stop doing things on paper and start doing things, as you said, on a tablet or phone. So in my space in particular, I had some people report who moved over to me. They had never worked in change management, organizational development before. They had no idea what to do with people to move them along in the journey. So that in itself was a challenge. And we went through a number of facilitated sessions, coaching sessions, where they had to realize, and I'm taking it back to what you said about the Toto matrix, around about what is working today and what can they take into the future. And one of the things that they knew is they knew the business. They knew they had a particular skill set. They knew they had relationships. Those were the things that they could take forward, because those things were not paper.
No.
Yeah, it's about relationships. I mean, this is the things that you take forward. And in the conversations, what we realized is that there was that loss, that fear. They went through this loss of, this is what I knew, and this is my day-to-day, to I've got to become a very different person and show up in a very different way. And what we did with that team was all around getting them to understand what they had and what they could take into the future. But it required vulnerability. The ability to say, I'm not ready, I'm not comfortable. And the ability for me as a leader to say, I'm here to support you and to help and take you forward. So from a leader's perspective, we need to also know where our teams are at in these huge types of change. And we need to be able to step into this space and say, I'm here to support you. I'm not saying I was perfect in any way, Adeliah. It was a rough ride, but we got there because I must say, the very first thing we showed them was the Toto matrix. And they saw this, the diagram, and they went, wow. It was like an aha moment for them. It just hit them. And they said, wow, I want more of this. Show me more, teach me more. And that's what we started doing. We started bringing a lot of the reinvention concepts for them to be able to work in this changing environment. Not even the organization, that happened afterwards, but to get them comfortable with change.
You know, I'm nodding profusely because I'm relating on so many levels. And I want the viewer to understand what you're saying. You mentioned our team. That was not the leadership team.
No.
That was the HR
OD,
team.
The OD and change team, yeah.
Why would an HR team not be comfortable in an OD space? In the context that you spoke of, obviously. Yes.
Well, if you look at HR, it's most HR teams are very traditional. They look at all of the transactional things, how to hire people, how to train people, performance management, those things. But they do not necessarily step into the space of facilitating change or helping teams change and move forward. It's usually goes, hey, Phil, can you come in and do this piece of work? That's usually what happens.
Yeah.
But we didn't have the time for that.
Right.
So it was like, we've got to hit it now. And I had the tools. I had this. I thought, I'm going to use it. It's an opportunity. So it was experimentation on my side. We didn't know if it was going to work or not. It was total experimentation. But when they said, I get this, I know exactly what we're working with, we just need more of this.
You're saying big things, or you're saying things that mean big things for people. You mentioned vulnerability. I mean, that can't be easy to work with. I find in some of the spaces I work with, it's very hard for somebody who's in a leadership position to say, I don't know. I don't have the answer.
Yeah.
But can we find the answer together? What is it that we need to do that's going to help us move from limited understanding?
Yeah.
It's never a zero base, but just getting people to understand that it's okay, you don't have to know everything, especially in a world, as you mentioned, that changes so fast. Yesterday in IT, as you mentioned, it would have been this way. Tomorrow, just overnight, there's a new feature and everything's different for the poor user that's just coming to work today to try and do their job, and the level of frustration. But I'm going too deep into that. I just want to talk about, you mentioned the vulnerability.
Yes.
And there was also something else you mentioned, where our teams are at. Where did your teams find themselves?
In a very scary place. They were so scared. I think when they felt a huge loss of what they had known. So it was kind of scary for them, but I think the thing that swung it was that vulnerability that you spoke of, and being able to create a space of psychological safety where they could say, I don't get this, where I could say, well, neither do I. So it's okay, we're going to learn together. I didn't know what was the next thing from a digital transformation perspective. I think most leaders today don't actually know. So, so it was working with what's in the moment and looking ahead at the same time. And you spoke of it in your introduction. So what is it that we can prepare for? And that was the whole thing that we worked on in that speed. It was actually a space of 3 months. Was around getting prepared and then getting out.
So you mean I can't call Phil or Roshon and say, please come and do a piece of work, and then it's just going to happen on day one? The work that you have planned? You need time for this?
You need time.
Yeah. I giggle at it because it's just, we're not magicians.
No.
We know how to help people move and walk across the bridge, but we do need that to be the starting block.
Yeah.
And one client might need just a month for that. Another client might need many months for that. And it doesn't depend on which industry you come from. It depends very much on the people in that system. You also said explore.
Yes.
What does that mean? In the context of a serious world like agribusiness and IT. Explore and experiment.
And we did. We did a lot of that. So we, part of that journey was trying to get about 500 people ready for the change that was coming. Never using a tablet before, literally did not know how to switch it on. So getting people ready for that journey, and our COO came to us and said, you know what, guys, I don't know how we're going to do this. Can you help? And we said, yes, but just to note, we don't know if it's going to work either. We are going to experiment with something. And we did. So we started playing with a lot of the material from reinvention and looking at how we could adapt it to our environment and our people. And that's the thing about what I love about these tools, is that you do not have to be a purist. You can experiment in whatever way you want with it. Just acknowledge the copyright.
Yes.
But you can experiment with it and design and use it to your space. And that's exactly what we did. I mean, to take 500 people through a process where they got to understand the change that was coming, having their leaders talk about the change that's coming, and giving them the ability to identify in themselves, going back to that total matrix, what are the skills that they have and what do they need for tomorrow? So we gave them that opportunity to identify for themselves.
Yeah.
And then we said, okay, now we're ready to train you. Who's interested? And they all said, we're interested. But I say all. Actually, there were a few, like you said, who stepped out and said, this is not for me. And we knew that was going to happen. That was one of the things that I said to the CEO. Not everybody's going to be on board. And he said, I understand and I expect that. So that was a journey. We had a few who just said, not for me, and they opted out. And it was okay.
I think that's quite fair. I mean, you never can tell where somebody is in their life.
Yeah.
It's hard enough for leaders to pay attention to the KPIs on a day-to-day basis, let alone discover where everybody's at. And so you will, I suppose, discover that there are people who simply cannot, I think you said it so nicely earlier on, they cannot make the change for whatever's going on in their lives, or they will not. And that it's okay, as you say, to go, all right, so this is how far across the bridge you're prepared to walk, and that's fine. Either somebody like that, one might either think that there's a different job for them in the organization, or they might come to the realization that if this is where the world's at and this is the speed of change that I'm going to be dealing with in my industry, maybe I should make a pivot. Maybe I should pivot right out of, I'm just going to use IT as an example. You might find that, wow, my life is not set up in such a way that I can maintain the speed of change. I simply can't stay abreast of what's going on. So perhaps I look back at my skill sets and I go, well, how else can I be relevant in this workplace, in the change effort, or otherwise to my family and into my community in a different way? Very deep stuff.
Yep.
Very, very deep stuff.
Yeah.
Roshon, I use the example. It's on my screen here. You can't see, but for our viewers, I mean, I know agribusiness it's quite rigid. You know, you can't ship apples when you feel like shipping apples.
No.
You can't go and pick oranges because you feel that, hey, I need to make some money now, so let me go get some oranges and let me sell. It's really based on Mother Nature herself. She'll tell you when it's orchid time or when it's harvesting time, if you like.
Yeah.
I think I was at ECB at the time, it was grape season. And one doesn't think about how food gets from farm to plate, if you like. Or we don't spend an awful amount thinking about it. But it's an entire value chain. It's an entire system. And so I look at your business and I go, if your business is quite rigid, and when I say quite rigid, I'm talking about compliance. There's a lot of compliance in a business where your work is around, let's say, work with perishables or work with food. How do you get a system that is so heavily compliant to be able to be flexible and adaptable and to move along? Because I know with highly regulated industries, often the people will tell you can't do that because regulation, it's very rigid. You know, they'll remind you every day. So how do you deal with that?
Thanks, Adeliah. So that's a very interesting question because, yes, we are quite a structured organization from a compliance perspective, but it's not about the compliance itself. It's about how do you enable compliance through being adaptable and agile and innovative. And that's the part that we focused on, because our digital transformation journey was about making sure that we can deliver on compliance. Not to say that we are compliant, It's about how do we deliver that to the industry. So it was also a huge thing for people to adjust to, because we said to them, your job going forward is to help the industry be compliant, and you also need to be able to give advice to them on how to do that. So again, it went back to helping people to understand that they have a particular skill set and they need to apply it a bit differently. Yeah. So that was actually what we used in that.
Sorry, Roshon. And I don't know whether you find this, but when we work with some organisations that are highly regulated, we have the conversations with them. Yes, we know it's highly regulated, and we know you have to be compliant. But does that apply to absolutely everything you do? And often they go, well, no. Well, why are you applying it to everything you do? Because they do. It's like a one size fits all approach, and that's and that just shifting that mindset a little bit helps free up some room to be innovative and try to move things forward rather than everything's stuck. Yeah. And it's interesting that you said mindset, but we had to take it a step further to the behaviors. So to what Adeliah likes to call the heart set. The behaviors. But I mentioned 3 specific things. The agility, adaptability, innovation. And that is what we actually rolled out as part of our values and changing the culture. Because if we didn't do that, we were still going to have the same, no, we are compliant and, we have to do it in this way. There's no ways we can do it any differently. So it was part of the behaviors that they needed to learn.
I really like that. Because if we're going to embed the principles, the methodology, the tool set, the heart set of reinvention. If we're going to embed that, we need to know that we need to figure out where embedding starts in an organization. And I wrote this down because I'm so fascinated. So if your values don't either highlight or recognize or reward that kind of thinking, it's probably not going to happen. Really cool.
No.
So, Phil, you mentioned journey. So let's look at your client space, and you can choose any client. We mentioned that it takes a bit of time to work through the ability, or that just to get somebody to get to the point where they decide, I'm on board. I'm going to try this. It's going to be scary. I don't know what they're talking about, but I'm going to be prepared to learn, to test, to experiment, and to allow those insights then to become part of your organization's strategy for growth or forever where we're going. The question I had for you was, what's the tool that you use to enable that journey?
Yeah, and it's another reinvention tool.
Another one?
Yeah. There's hundreds. No. There's some really nice ones, and this is a really nice one. Because when people think of strategy, they think of something that is, cast in stone and is going to last for 10 years. And that doesn't work anymore. And the one that's come out of the reinvention tool set is called Stellar. STELLAR. And that is an agile implementation tool, actually, rather than a strategy tool. And that helps and I've used this with many organizations, including our own as well. So we use it with ourselves. So I used it with a law firm recently, interestingly enough, which you can't get much more traditional than a law firm. This is quite a forward-thinking one, and they liked it and went for it because they wanted to shift some things. And basically what this tool did for this law firm was to identify some key outcomes that they wanted, and also the short steps to get there. And so the way it works is you kind of have an outcome which most organizations choose a year in our experience, because that's a nice length of time, and have those outcomes for a year, but then chunk them down into shorter sprints, basically. So it has some agile methodology kind of parallels. Some choose 4 months, interesting enough. Some choose 3 months, which is a quarter. And this law firm chose a 3-month chunk, and we helped them identify what were the practical steps that they wanted to take in the first 3 months, and also the 1-year outcomes, and then set some time to review with them at the end of those 3 months how things had gone. And in that way, it becomes more focused. B, you can measure it very easily over the 3-month period. C, you're not waiting forever to work out whether it's working or not. So the signs it might not be the whole thing that you finish, but you're on the way there, part of the journey. And we like it for those reasons, really. It feels very practical for, kind of even the kind of most die-hard operational leader, as well as people who are creative and much more forward-thinking. So it suits all. We like it because it's seen as practical. We like it because it's seen as less demanding, I think. It's less scary, to use a very simple word, in that, we've got to do all that in a year. No, you've got much more manageable steps to get there. So we use it for ourselves and other clients, and they at first aren't so sure, partly because it's new and it's different, and partly because sometimes they say, well, it doesn't quite fit in with our systems, and then we have to, as you were saying, adjust and try and make it fit in with our systems. And then once they have experienced it, though, they do really like the benefits that it brings. So yeah, I think I've helped organisations kind of facilitate strategic processes and strategic thinking for 10 or 15 years. And I don't use any other now. I use that. If they don't want to use it, I don't want to do the work, basically, because I don't believe in it.
You take me back to a time when I struggled with the tool itself, with Stella. Because I couldn't figure out why I'm applying all of everything I learned, quite studious. I'm going to play with a tool until I know what it's trying to tell me or what it can tell me, but I couldn't win with the Stella. Just wasn't winning. And I remember showing, it could have been a lab or wherever we got, maybe a power up, where I might have said, this Stella, I like it so much, I want to use it, but it's not working. I'm a facilitator, this must work. I need to show other people how to use this. And I discovered what I was doing wrong very quickly, because I've got project management in my background, and project management teaches you to look at the end result. So you begin at the end, there where you want to be. So if B is my location, how am I going to get there? But I know I'm going to get there by looking backward or walking my way backward from where I want to be. So what must I do here to get there? And what must I do here to get there? And so on until you get to the beginning. Stella breaks the rules completely. And I think that's what makes Stella fun, because you get to break rules. Who doesn't like breaking rules?
Yeah, love it.
So it was such a mind shift for me to work on a 1-year plan, as you say, as you've used, but to only work on a quarter. So what that looks like, I want viewers to understand. I wish I had a map here, but we'll share one. We'll share one for you. Your action section on Stella, that's what the A is for, is blank.
Yeah.
If you're working 3-month sprints. It's only your first 3-month sprints that you would populate, if you like. Yes, with what are we going through? What are those little action steps? The will to put everything into that Stella.
Absolutely.
So I want to put everything in there, because I know if I can't get there in my mind's eye, I'm not going to get there. So that's the first tension. Tell me about a sprint.
Can I come in there?
Yes.
And this is this need for humans to have certainty and predictability.
Yes.
We want it about everything, like the weather. We look at weather forecasts and we want to know whether it's going to be windy tomorrow or not, and we expect the forecast to be accurate. And guess what? Sometimes it isn't. And that's the same with trying to predict a year into the future. So the other thing, and I'm glad you reminded me of this, that businesses really love about it, is we're not wasting time trying to predict how to get into quarter 2, 3 and 4. That's a waste. You might as well not do it, because it always changes. I mean, that's the reality. So you have to get used to this kind of, it's not a deliberate process, it's much more emergent. So, and you plan with an outcome in mind. So you've got a direction to head for, but you implement it in an emergent way. And you can throw things out. No, well, we tried that and it didn't work. Stop it. Let's do something else instead. Or we're getting, that looks like it's working. We'll continue with it. But you don't know until you've tried. And so this idea of trying to predict is a very difficult mindset or way of looking at the world. But once you have it, leaders have talked about, why haven't I known about this before? Because it just changes your concept about the way the world works, basically, and the way everything works. So that is a really, really powerful aspect of this. And it's a bit like you're on a train, and this is the scary bit. You're on a train, but you just laying the tracks as you come to them. And not having the whole network mapped out. And with railways, you can't do that, but with strategy, you can.
I love the railway metaphor. I'm always speaking about how you build the aeroplane while it's in the air. And at that point, I think the imagery is it's so jarring that I might be losing people actually when I say that. I sometimes feel I do. Phil, I smiled earlier on, became aware that I was smiling at you a lot because I was picturing the finance guy, the finance person.
Yeah, absolutely.
So leaders, like everybody's on board, and it's not always, because shame, there are some, no, we mustn't say it's always the finance department, but it's the department that is the most rigid, or should be, with the most rules, for good reasons, yes. How do you get such a person to be flexible enough to support the rest? Let's just use the example of a leadership team that is fully on board and the organization on board, and we're all experimenting and we're all exploring, which means we're spending money. We're not doing this at a free cost. It's still a cost. How do you get a finance person to understand that it's necessary to spend the money on short activities, short bursts?
So I've got an example for you. Thanks. So in my business, I'm the finance person. Funnily enough, no finance background. I'm not a CA. But however, I look after the finances with a very good CA accountant, I must say. But anyway, so one of the things about setting the end of year outcomes, which I talked about before, is you always have a range. So there's a range. And in our business, the way we do it, we have best, worst, and middle. So we have 3 options.
Okay.
So within the range. And then what we do, and this is what I share with other finance people who might have some barriers, is then we build our budgets about what we spend to worst, middle, and best. And we start the year always on the worst. So there's a little bit of reality or caution there. And depending on how things go, we have, we want to be here by end quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3. And if we're ahead of worst case, then we might ease up the financial reins a little bit and spend some more money. And we know what we want to spend the money on to some extent. So that's how we manage it. And we also have shifted our year end more recently because our business, we found, is very seasonal. It's up and down. So our year end, we've put in a place of the year that helps us in terms of our budgeting and our finance as well. So we've done that as well. And if depends in terms of an organisation how much choice the finance person has. But there's some options around playing around with how you look after the money side of the business to make sure that you can be more reinventy. Is that a word?
You made it. It's now a word.
I made it up. Or and not let finance get in the way, basically. So that's how we do it.
But you've made something go off in my head. I think it's, if I was a finance person or if I was standing in those shoes, I think I would be a lot more comfortable if you said, give me 5,000 Rand, I want to experiment, versus give me 500,000 Rand, we're buying this new tool or we're buying this new piece of software. Do you find that that's better for you?
It is. Yeah. It is. It is. And also any big strategic investment we want, we have to build that in and where we want it in the year. So for example, we know that we want to rebuild our website, which is a bit of an investment. So we we were wanting to do it before Christmas. We were too busy, so we couldn't do it. But it's in the budget, and we'll do it hopefully in the new year when it's a little bit quieter. So there's also the operational considerations to take into account. But you have to run your business as well.
Yes.
In a sensible way.
Yeah. Just to come in on what you're saying, so what I found is it's the language we use. So when you say Stella to finance people, they want a very structured type of thing. But what was interesting is if you talk to a management accountant and say, give me the financial modeling for these scenarios, which is what you spoke about.
Yeah, sure.
They get it.
Okay.
It's the language we use. So you just need to learn to translate between the two. And they get it eventually. So, yeah, I've often gone to finance and I said to them, guys, can we have different scenarios? Can you tell me how we're doing now and how we know what the end result is? We know what the end budget is, but what can we play around with right now? They've got to model it. Give you an idea.
They also need to see.
They also
and
need
be
to see,
convinced. I like that. Do you have a story about how you might have
used Stella.
used Stella?
Yeah.
I'm so glad you have a story for us.
Well, it's part of what we do. It was one of the first things we introduced when we did the shift, and we needed to look at how we were going to stage rollouts of certain things and what we were and were not going to do. But we had this end, the end part, the end goal, and we also did the sprints, and we said as we go along, we are going to discard things that we cannot actually deliver on. We're a small team. You can't expect us to do 1 million things. We can only take on this. Are you okay? Business, are you okay with us just doing this? Yeah, okay. So that's what we did. And we said, okay, this is working. We took it into the next cycle or following cycle, depending on what it was. And there were things where we said, no, we're not going to touch that this year. We'll get back to that next year. There is no capacity, both in our team, but also in the organization. So that's the nice thing about Stella, is that you can look at the level of change fatigueness or readiness in your team and the organization at the same time and say, is this possible or not? What do I take forward and what don't I take forward? A very recent example is in our talent management. We've been doing this, it's reached a level of maturity, and we said, what, guys, we need to rethink about how we're doing this going forward. So let's start experimenting. And we told our team, go out and experiment and come back with ideas. And we said, okay, we're just going to sort of give feedback to Exco around where we're at, but we're also going to tell them we're experimenting with something. And Exco's response was, okay, yeah, you guys go and do whatever you want to do, but come back and tell us what the outcome is. So their thing is they realize where the business is at. They're expecting us to reinvent, and I'm going to say reinvent the way we're doing things, so that we constantly stay at the edge of where the future is, and that's what we also use Stella for.
Stella is such that when I say the word Stella, and maybe I mustn't be so excited when I work with people who don't necessarily know it, because it actually gives you, and sorry for the play on words, but it gives you stellar results. Purely because you're able to take feedback very quickly to a team, or whether it's leadership team or the finance person. And finance is often part of leadership. I don't mean to separate them, but I know that it's quite it's I think the order is a little taller for somebody in finance. When you have got to be the one, saying yeses and nos to what are we going to experiment with, what we're going to play with. But I was hoping you could take us through what a sprint looks like. What does a sprint look like for you?
So for us, it's also quarterly, like most organizations. We work on a 12-month. It's quarterly. We've identified our end results that we want to achieve, and we do a review every quarter. And we say, well, what's working, what's not working, what do we want to move forward with, and what do we want to continue with. One of the things that we're working with now is a leadership development, leadership model. It was a total experiment, something we went to Exco and said, this is what we're planning to do. And they said, oh, this is fantastic because it speaks to what we want in our culture. We said, but this is the first quarter and this is what we're planning to do. So we finished the first round of training with the management team. And we had said we're only focusing on them for the year. That was on our standard. We're only focusing on them. And then executives came back and said, no, hold on, guys. No. You need to take this all the way down into the organization.
Oh, my goodness.
So that means what we planned for in the first quarter was going to continue. We didn't know that was going to happen. So it's like, okay, so what do we put on the back burner?
Yeah.
And we had to put things on the back burner.
Roshon, I know that you had in agribusiness, I'm talking a couple of years ago now, and maybe it's still there, maybe it's not, but you had what was called a war room, where you would, I suppose it's a common term for IT, where you look at what have we done, you report on, how it's working, how's that new code feature working, so forth and so on. Stella, I feel, is a little bit like that.
It is, very much.
Yes?
Yeah.
So it's not that Stella is made for IT. Please don't, viewers, you mustn't be thinking that. It's for all, it's for industries. But I do want something tangible. I want the viewer to be able to picture being in a review. So what is the question that we can call it a Scrum Master, but we don't necessarily have to have a Scrum Master because it's not necessarily Scrum.
Yeah.
But just for viewers to make that connection very quickly, you'd have somebody leading the sprint. You didn't have to be an expert reinvention practitioner to do that.
No.
So can we begin there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, firstly, it's to refresh everybody about what the standard is.
Yes.
And then sort of for us, the way we've done it, Phil, you probably did it differently. We looked at what was the end result and where we started. What are we currently busy with?
Yeah.
We also looked at what was important to us was limitations, and lessons learned. The lessons learned was the biggest part. Strangely enough. The owl, yeah. Because that owl was about what are we not taking into the next sprint? What did we learn that we don't want to repeat in the next sprint? So that was quite important to us, even from a digital transformation point of view. So I'll just give you a hint. We rolled out 3 technology systems in a period of 3 years. 3 years, it's a lot. And we said from the first one to the second one to the third one, what are the things that we will not repeat, not take forward, and learn from where we had done previous implementations, because, it's a lot of money. Going back to a finance person.
So the color drained from my face.
Yes. So that was the idea. And you adjust as you go along, so sometimes it's very hard for people to understand the difference between the listen and the limit parts.
Yeah,
I don't know.
True. I'm one of those at times as well. But I guess we view limits as things that we can't go beyond. They're things that. So for our limits are, they might be geographical or financial, I suppose, or whatever. So our budget forms part of our limits, I guess. But for us, the sprints are very similar. So we have a quarterly sprint. We have half a day, 3 hours, 4 hours to dive deep into what did we say we were going to do.
Yeah.
Reflect on that, and some of that is a sharing with the rest of the team because not everybody's involved in everything. So we said we were going to do this. This is where we're up to. This is what's worked. This is what hasn't worked. This is what we like. This is what we've learned, etc., etc. And now as we usually have about 3 or 4 main areas, pillars.
Yeah.
And marketing and sales is always one, because that's a key part of our business. We're a consultancy. We have to hunt new clients. I mean, that's the way to say it, and farm the present clients, make sure that we're nurturing them and looking after them. So that's a big part, and we'll have people who are focused on that, who kind of lead it, maybe 1 or 2 in the business, but everybody's involved in it. So, and then the outcome of the sprint is clarity about how we've done, so
Yeah.
everybody knows, and decisions about the next quarter. So what are we going to take forward? What are we going to drop? It's a keep, drop, create.
Yeah.
What
it
are
is.
we going to create that's new? What are we dropping that's,
Not-
either finished and it's been successful, but it's now into the normal day-to-day running. And what do we keep? What do we need to keep because we haven't finished it yet? We're still working on it. And we take that in and then codify that and make it clear. Whoever's leading that, and we use an OKR methodology
Yeah.
for we do because it's more team-based, and then we're into the next sprint. So it's kind of a 4
Iterative.
cycles in a year,
Yeah.
iterative, and sometimes we do that as a virtual conversation. Sometimes it's everyone together.
Here's my
Same.
favorite part about Stella. My favorite part is that question in the sprint. And I'm talking about my very own personal Stella. When I look at what did I say I was going to do, let's take this podcast, for example. I said I'm going to explore and experiment with podcasting for the greater good. So you get to the point where you're now needing to review where you're at in your plan, of your implementation plan.
Yeah.
And you get to ask yourself, because you must, not because you get to, it's one of those questions, will you take this forward?
Yeah.
Whatever that mini activity was. And if the answer is no, the relief,
Yes. Yeah.
it's been hurting me because it's not giving me answers. I'm not able to navigate my way through this. Why must I take this into the next quarter? That's for myself as Adeliah. I imagine what that does for teams. When you tell your team member that you don't have to do it.
Yeah, exactly that. And they go, sense of relief. Oh, okay, I get to focus on the really important things that are working. It energizes them to look forward to the things that they actually need to deliver on. There is something that Phil, that you said, other people who are not there and people who are there. So one of the things we put into the Stella, unofficially, we actually put in accountable people
Okay.
for the actions.
Okay.
So it's not in the standard current version it's in the new version of the Stella. But at the time we've actually said, so Phil, you, and Delia, and it makes it more of a team collaborative effort when you start to review that Stella. So it's not just, the boss talking. Everybody gets to participate.
And everybody gets to participate on the thing that energizes them,
Yes.
that they are really good at. So no point in giving somebody this heavy backpack and say, pull this thing all the way to the end of the year when we're going to review you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to bring you a bag of bricks. It's just going to be heavy with nothing in it. And the ability to give somebody absolute joy, real hope, that they can make a difference matters, I would say, because I'm no longer saying to you as a team leader or an operational leader that you have to do this in this way. Yes, those fundamentals will be there, but you give creative license, I would say, to your team members.
Yeah.
And when people are doing what energizes them and what they're very good at, they become this thing that we all seek, which is productive. Not just as leaders, but even as an individual. When you're not productive, you know that it doesn't feel nice. Because you're busy with busy. You're going to have to go tell your manager something. And you're going to wing it, you're going to make it up, as long as you're saying something. And I think Stella changes that completely. Because you're not going to come and wing up, you're not going to come up with something to say just because, you're going to have a talking turn. You're going to be basing your feedback on a piece of work or an activity that there was consensus built around in your last sprint.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing. In our business, that consensus is built in, and there's alignment around it. It doesn't get onto the Stella unless majority is agreed. Sometimes there's one or two outliers, but consensus about it. But then there's accountability for a couple of people taking a part, each kind of thing forward. Like you were saying, exactly the same. And we don't, it's generally not accountability on achieving the result. It's more a case of, have you put in place the things that we talked about to try and achieve that result? Because sometimes,
Yeah.
You know, it's
Exactly.
like for the sales team, you know, you don't know whether you're going to sell or not. You know, that's there's too many other variables in play. But have you done the right things that we thought would achieve X, Y, and Z? So we've done that, and where are we now? And has it worked or hasn't it worked? And then we can. That's the review conversation. So I think accountability is also a part of it, because it's an as we were saying before, it's an implementation tool. And if people don't contribute and we're not successful, then the business can't be sustainable, you know. And that's the key point about reinvention, isn't it?
Yes.
Making it sustainable over the medium long term, and which includes change. And the Stellar tool just helps organizations do that with some framework,
Yes.
but also some flexibility to, you know, account for the world that we live in today.
Stellar is really an amazing tool. It really is the tool that helps us walk over that proverbial bridge, shall we say. It's a bridge that we need to walk over not once as individuals, not once as organizations, but we need to build that bridge. And I like your train track metaphor because the bridge is always being built.
Yeah.
There's always a piece of it there. And I want to talk to our viewers just for them to get the understanding that yes, we love our tools. We love it not because we've been trained in it. We love it because we've seen the impact. We've seen our customers literally going from point A to point B at a time where they also didn't know where it is that they're going. So I'm going to wrap it up at this point. Why don't we have more time? We must speak to the podcast whisperers and the incredible production team behind the scenes. I wish you could see them maybe in one of the future episodes. We will introduce you because this in itself is an experiment for them.
Yeah.
I was hoping that you could share with us, just as a closing, a story of impact. It could either be one individual or it could be a team. You know, after having given you the freedom to, well, giving themselves the freedom to play with some of these tools, but make it human. I don't necessarily want to hear which KPI was ticked or that's what, because I know I've seen it in people. I'll give one example, and I've asked you for one, but please give me one from agribusiness and from the IT space because it's critical. It was Liesel in our first episode, Liesel van der Westhuizen. We were co-facilitating, and the people in that room were social workers and psychologists and humanities for the better part. And you could see on day one, when people walked in, it was that face of another workshop. But you could see at the end, actually not the end, you could see when we were working, when we just passed the mindset bits, they were then open for Stella and all these other tools. You could see, and I'm going to quote Benjamin Zander now, but he said, you must look at the eyes of people, because when those eyes are shining and sparkling, you know that transformation has occurred. Mm-hmm. How many times do you see that when you work with these tools?
Quite often.
Quite often.
Yeah.
I've got a quick story then. There's that skepticism,
yes,
that cynicism at the start. Oh, here we go, another kind of workshop. So in an organisation we've been working with recently who build and operate data centres. And, you know, they are at the forefront of technology. It is like the Wild West, I kid you not, that everybody's out trying to be there first and build fast and more capacity, etc. And they have grown from a small business which was merged, and then another business, and then another business. And now they're in a global organisation. And when we started working with them, their first comments were, "Oh yeah, we're used to change. We've seen lots of it." And then we started working with them, and then the look in their eyes, the change is not a project. They love that phrase. They love the phrase around, and they started using it. Yes, we get it. So we often use the Titanic as a metaphor for some of the change and some of the resistance to change. And one of the phrases which is stolen really is around, you can't blame the iceberg. And they use that all the time now. So they really shifted their view about, number one, they knew what change was all about and were ready to, and thought they were skilled and understood it. And then they said, now we've learned a whole new kind of way of looking at change and being skilled up for change. So that's, in that kind of industry, was like a big thing for me personally.
I must say that you mentioned Titanic syndrome. So recently also IT. And it's interesting, I always, IT. Our IT team merged with another IT team. So we're now delivering on multiple platforms.
I'm so sorry, Roshon. I noticed Phil doing this because I think it got awkward. They're like, whoo, merging IT teams.
Yeah, I saw that too. And the reason we used Titanic questionnaire was to get them to understand they're one team. We need to focus on delivering for the industry.
Absolutely.
Because they thought that there were two teams delivering separate things. So it was one purpose, one vision, and you guys got disrupted. That was the big thing for them. That iceberg eat them head on. And we took them through that, told the story, got them to do the questionnaire. And at the end of it, they went like, wow, we thought that we were adaptable, agile, innovative, and we could run with things very quickly. We actually have a lot to learn. So it was a wake-up call for them.
Nice.
I'm going to thank you both, because I feel like we are just getting into it.
Thank you.
Not in the way that you've shared your stories. I feel like we could just spend the rest of the afternoon here and talk, because I'm learning. I hope the viewers are learning, and I would like you to please subscribe, because we're going to bring you maybe Phil with Roshon again, maybe Phil with Liesel, maybe two completely different guests, but it's always going to be this rich, because the conversations we have are not conversations we prepared for you. They are conversations that are based on very real lived experiences for ourselves as facilitators, but also for very real businesses that we've been working with. Thank you for introducing Titanic syndrome. I'm not going to go into it now, but I'm going to say it's the story. It's the story of the 3 Ps. It is indeed borrowed from this book here, which is the Reinvention, or the Chief Reinvention Officer Handbook. We'll put a link up there when we're ready, and we'll share everything with you. In this book, there are teachings, and it's based on Titanic, on how to anticipate change, how to design change, and how to implement it. For the purposes of this podcast, because we're family of, but we are not the Reinvention Academy, we are the Reinvention Academy Africa. We use the 3 Ps because we like them. It's easy, it rolls off the tongue. So you spoke about predicting. You're giving people a new lens, a new way to predict what's coming, the icebergs. They're out there. They were always there. We just weren't looking. Or we didn't have the tools to be able to see them properly, or a strong enough tool to see far enough into the distance. One of those scenarios. The other P would be to prepare, which is the designing for change. So how do we, and you mentioned beautiful stories about how do you gather hordes of people, hundreds, you mentioned 500 people. My brain stopped there when you said 500, like, wow. But it is beginning with the mindset, but it's beginning with the people who need to lead the change first before taking it organization-wide. And then there's pioneering. And I don't know a single person in business who doesn't want to pioneer or be pioneering. In fact, we don't have much of a choice. If we're not pioneering, we are following. It's not a bad thing to follow, but it's okay not to be first to market, but it's really important to know how to stay relevant. And we spoke about that maybe in the intro. And with that, again, just thank you very much. I am very, very excited. I've got lots of notes in here. Viewers might have been thinking I'm making notes for you. I was making notes for myself. So I've really enjoyed this, and I look forward to the next one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.